Welcome to Jay's Auto Garage. I am a mechanic by trade. I have been doing this for about 4 years. I'm ASE certified in engine repair. I'm planning on working on some more. Today I will be showing you how to remove a transmission from a Honda Accord. The years that's applicable is from 1994 to 1998. Same engine, maybe one engine may be a 2.3 liter instead of a 2.2. One may be VTEC, the other might not be VTEC, might be non-VTEC. But the engine and transmissions are basically the same, and they all basically come out the same way. The first thing you want to do is disconnect the battery. The next thing you want to do is put the car in neutral or park. I will explain to you later on the reason for that. Then you want to come over here, you want to disconnect the shift cable going to the throttle body. It's a 10mm bolt that I took off already. The next thing you want to do is you want to disconnect the starter from the transmission, which is right here. That's two bolts holding it on underneath the cylinder head. After you get that off, you want to take off the air duct connected to the air box. This is the air box, and there's a little air duct that goes from here to the throttle body. You want to take off those clamps, loosen those clamps, and take that off. Next thing you want to do is you want to come down here. You want to disconnect the axle nut from the axle, which I believe is a 32 or 36mm. You want to take off the caliper. You want to drain the fluid from the transmission, which is a 3/8 ratchet. Take off this trailing arm that's going to be in the way for you to drop the transmission. You want to come over here, which I already took off because I'm getting ready to replace the vacuum pinion, but you want to disconnect the, you want to loosen the jam nut up, which is right here. Loosen this jam nut on both sides. It's a 7/8. It might be different depending on if you got aftermarket auto tie rods. Then what you want to do is you want to come over here. You want to disconnect the cotter pin from the castle nut. And the castle nut is a 17mm socket, if I'm not mistaken. Take a sledgehammer, hit the edge of the steering knuckle. Do not hit the stud on the outer tie rod, because if you do, you're gonna hit the threads and mess them up, or you're gonna bend it or crack it. What I'm talking about is right here. This is the stud on the outer tie rod. If you hit this, you could mushroom this. You can mess the threads up. You could crack it, or you could bend it, and you're gonna have to get a whole nother outer tie rod. The next thing you want to do is come over here and disconnect this brake hose. Take these two bolts off. Then you want to come up here and you want to, I'm sorry, come down here. Disconnect this nut from the bolt that's going through the strut fork. The reason why you gotta take that off is because you gotta get the axle out. Once you get that loose and you pop the bolt out, then you want to come up here. You want to disconnect this. Let me see. This pinch bolt right here. This pinch bolt right here. You want to take this loose, and you want to take that out. Then what you want to do is you want to come up here. You want to take this cotter pin out. Take this castle nut off. Hit it with a sledgehammer right here. Do not hit the frame of this control arm. Hit the steering knuckle up here, and then pop this out. Once you do that, you can pull this whole thing forward towards your body, and you can take the axle out. Now, the trick to take the axle out is to take a pry bar. Take a pry bar, stick between the axle and the transmission underneath the car, and pry on the transmission while you pushing on the axle, and it should pop it out. Once again, make sure all the transmission fluid is drained out, because if you don't, you're gonna have a big mess on the ground. Then after you do that, you come underneath the car. You disconnect your torque converter to flywheel bolts. I believe it's about 6 of them. Maybe it's more than that. I might be wrong. But take those out. And the way you do that is you take a 19mm socket. You put it on the flywheel, on the 200 balancer bolt. And you rotate the engine. And as you rotate the engine, you slowly take a 10mm wrench and you take these bolts out. Once you get all these out, then what you want to do is that you want to come down here. This is a cover to the shift linkage. This is the shift linkage. Take these bolts out. There's a little linkage or shifter inside of here. There's a 10mm bolt holding it onto the shifter. Take that out, and then you can pop this linkage, this shift cable off. After you do that, then what you want to do is you want to go into the car, take out the bolts that's holding the transmission to the engine. After you do that, then what you want to do is come up here. You want to disconnect all your shift solenoid connectors, any other electrical connectors that's holding on to the harness. Then you want to disconnect your transmission hoses to the transmission lines. That's important. Then what you want to do is, before you start getting ready to drop the transmission, you want to take this cart right here. You can get this cart from Harbor Freight. If I'm not mistaken, it costs like 20 bucks. Get this cart right here, this little Dottie cart. Slide it underneath the transmission. Take 2 jacks, or you can take 1 jack and slide it under the frame of the subframe. Lower the car down onto the dolly. The transmission should sit on top of here. Then what you want to do is come up here and you want to go around the transmission and disconnect all the bolts that's holding onto the transmission onto the engine. After you take those off, I believe it's a 17 millimeter for all the bolts. After you take that off, then what you want to make sure is that the car is sitting, or the transmission is sitting on top of that wooden dolly. Then when you come over here, you want to disconnect the transmission mount from the frame. I believe that's a 17 also. And once you get everything disconnected, all your bolts and stuff are disconnected, you found all your transmission bolts and stuff like that, you get the transmission mount disconnected, get the starter off. What you want to do is that you want to take a pry bar and you want to slowly, once you disconnect all the bolts from the transmission, it's gonna automatically start separating itself. It's gonna start splitting from the engine. Then after you do that, you want to take a pry bar, and whatever opening you have between the engine block and the transmission, you want to slowly start prying around the transmission and the engine, and it's gonna separate the transmission from the engine. And it should be sitting on top of that dolly. And you want to lift the car back up, and then you should be able to just slide the transmission with the dolly, or the wooden dolly, from underneath the car. All this should probably take you, if you are experienced, probably about 30 minutes, I'd say, 30 to 45 minutes. But if you're not experienced and you have to take your time to figure out everything, it'll probably take you a good hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to do everything. So this is the conclusion of my video. Please hit that like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you can, and I will be making more videos in the near future. Have a nice day and goodbye.